Most heartfelt greetings and salutations, theydies and gentlethems. I eagerly welcome you to Sturgeon's most premier station, Dusklight Radio, hosted by yours truly, the incorporeal, altruistic, truly magnificent Everett J. Blackwell. Perhaps you know of us Blackwells. We were synonymous with the first true tunnel system within Sturgeon. We helped flesh out the underground sewers and train lines as a result. Great-Grandma Wilhelmina Callista Blackwell was truly a marvel when it came to design. She just needed to look once at the existing plans and know exactly where to dig. It was almost like instinct, and at 125, that woman could still go. Of course, she had to make certain arrangements with the mud dwellers to ensure she didn't offend their ruler, Gregor the Mud Emperor. You see, there's an old British nursery rhyme known as Mud, Glorious Mud that alludes to hidden cities within the soft, meaty caverns underneath the earth. Some called it Sid Martin's Land, a place completely bathed in twilight. But regardless, it is home to a group of unusual individuals who slather themselves in mud armor, determined not to let anyone see what is underneath. Anyone, that is, who isn't Gregor the Ninth, the Mud Emperor. Gregor is what we call in Sturgeon a dream king. He may look normal on the outside, but when you fall asleep, his alternate or true form comes out. I've seen it once. He stands on his hands, naked and letting his back bend as legs fall forward, gnashing teeth on the ends of them as his abdomen splits open, a dark chasm revealing itself. He will challenge you. He will hunt you, and it is your job to evade him and gain his favor, his respect. Fail and, well, you don't want to fail. Through this intimidation, he became the Mud Emperor and thus had a deal to be made. New caverns would be constructed and the dreams of the destitute of Sturgeon would be fed to him. Grandma Wilhelmina was no fool. She knew this was not a good deal. So she shook hands with her left and called in Nell Lockwood and Buck Nasty McGraw, our then nightmare detectives, with her right. It was messy, but things were solved pretty darn quickly. And now we have tunnels and no nightmares. Huh. If you're just joining us, first of all, welcome and do not skip. I promise each of these are unique in their own way. We don't put subliminal messages for online bloggers to become bewitched by for nothing, you know. Anyway, I'm Dusklight's main and most fabulous half-dead host. My job at this fine radio station is to bring you some of the most twisted, interesting, and downright bizarre tales that I and my wonderful many-legged runners collect from the far corners of Sturgeon and beyond. Some of them will make you laugh, some of them will make you cry, and some will provide you with the inescapable urge to go to your happy place. Now, you remember your happy place, don't you, listener? I suppose it has been a while since you were last there. You lost the trail once you forgot the secret passphrase. The night shift manager wouldn't let you in and, well, you made a bit of a scene the last time you failed. All people are born with a happy place, but so many lose their way. But not you, listener. You'd never truly lose your way. It was hidden from prying eyes and judgmental noses, their chests puffed out and clavicles twitching as they wondered how you could have such a grand, beauteous, and charming happy place while theirs was so small, fragile, and fleeting. They tried to take it away from you on the nights you were content, tried to burn it to the ground, infect it with hobgoblins, or turn it into a hellscape. And instead, they decided to work you to the bone until you forgot about your happy place. You forgot the magenta sky, the oak trees that stretched into the heavens carrying strange, soft fruits, the way the pixies would look at you as you glided on by, and all of your imaginary friends housed in the parlor, eagerly waiting for your return. Well, worry not, listener, because the story has led you back there, back to your happy place. Just be wary you don't lose your way there again. Or, worse still, forget how to leave. Because all of us must know how to get out of our heads eventually, lest we attract unwanted attention. It's time to introduce our next story for this double feature. It comes to us once again from head custodian TJ Lee. And now TJ has sent me a message via carrier pigeon to remind you all that this is another entry about our wonderful town Sturgeon and the strange ongoings within it, both past and present. He encourages you all to check out the last Sin-Eater story over on Romnex's channel, as she also covered tortoises and taros, which is an absolute treat. TJ isn't standing in the booth window this time. Maybe he's gone off to actually do his job for what... Oh my. Listeners, TJ has taped himself to the ceiling and is looking down on me, smearing purple lipstick. No, that's not lipstick, that's crayon. Purple crayon over his lips and puckering them at me while using his sponge to wipe the dirt off the ceiling. He's mouthing something to me and reaching behind him to unstick something to the wall. Do you miss Lee from HR? What in the... I see. Well, TJ, I don't anymore. I'm just going to congratulate you on your hard work and forget you're up there at all. Ugh. If you like TJ's work here or elsewhere, be sure to show him some love over on Twitter at TJ Lee, his subreddit r/TJ Lee, his podcast, The Writer's Mythos, where he looks into the untold tales of the world's most famous horror writers. He's very passionate about growing that one. And if you somehow have time, consider pre-ordering his first novella in the Chronicles of Sturgeon, The Last Sin-Eater, releasing May 7th in Kindle and paperback on Amazon. He's eagerly hoping that since it's in the top 100 for a couple of categories ahead of release day, he can get it to number 1 by May 7th and slap best-selling writer next to head custodian on his resume. All linked below. A special thanks must be given first to Mandy Mo for rendering yours truly in the beauteous image you see when you look at our page. Next, Dusklight bows at the altar of Trevor Henderson, the man behind Siren Head, for allowing Dusklight to use some of the images he's captured of various abominations. Our cast today features our currently upside-down head custodian TJ Lee, all hail his janitorial wisdom, and of course, lest we forget, some of the music you hear in our videos is provided by the Dark Somnium with gracious thanks. With that, the sun has set and dusk has crawled into the studio once more. Whether you're working, prepping to sleep, or evading the formless void that will one day consume us all, Blackwell is here to soothe your ears and captivate your soul. Now, close your eyes and take a deep breath. The scene has been set and the light is on. It's time to walk towards it. I've been losing an average of 30 minutes of sleep every night for the past 10 days. Now I'm down to a paltry 4 hours and 30 minutes. My walls are beginning to shift and my vision is blurring. I have to focus. I need to focus. Someone out there has to know what happened. Does anyone know why the garbage collectors have switched to the night shift? Even asking it sends shivers down my spine. It's late and soon I will hear them turn up to collect. I can't sleep upstairs anymore. Not where they can see me. Now I sleep in the living room with my gun propped against my shoulder, the weight a stern reminder that I am present. I am awake. I am a threat to them. They won't try anything if I'm a threat to them, right? Fuck. I'm sorry. Let me explain. My name is Tyson. I'm a farmer with a thriving family, a loving wife, and 2 bright young boys. We live in a very remote area that requires a significant amount of divergence for basic services. I won't say where, and I won't risk my family or my business, especially knowing what kind of armchair detectives there are out there. I respect you all for what you do and fear you in equal measure. Though, admittedly, I don't think you'd find a place like Sturgeon even if you tried. It's vast, complex, and not easy to traverse if you don't know the area. So I'd rather throw you a bone you could thoroughly chew on as opposed to delving into mine and my family's personal information. What I can tell you is this patch of land has been in my family for 6 generations. It was not acquired illegally, built on sacred land, and to the best of my knowledge, has never had a violent occurrence or bloodshed. We're just normal, hard-working folks who have always tried to do right. Which makes what's going on here all the more difficult to understand, to quantify and reason when the basic logic gives way. I hear you. You're undoubtedly scratching your heads and asking, why are the garbage collectors such an issue? And I don't blame you. But I'll get to that. Something shifted by the gates. No sound. Can't be the garbagemen. You hear them a mile off. They're not subtle about making their presence known. The first night they turned up was so startling that I honest to God thought they were being robbed by the most unprofessional thieves this part of the world had ever birthed. Rambunctious, loud, and borderline jovial in their candor. It was always the same, each and every time. The sounds of the huge mechanical vehicle roaring as it drove up my dirt road, crushing twigs and kicking up dirt as it ground to a stop by the gates some 50 feet from my front door. 2 thuds. Boots hitting the ground, stumbling over to the main gate where our trash was left for the garbagemen on a Tuesday. Usually a couple of surly men got out, grunted, and hauled ass out of the area as soon as possible. These two? Couldn't have been happier to be there from the sounds of things. Young men, the smiles almost visible in their tone.
This the one, Bill? Looks ready to me.
I reckon it is, Jeff. Let's get her done.
A laugh, a high five, the sounds of something being dragged and thrown into the truck before they'd back out of the driveway and go off into the night. Unusual, right? My wife and kids certainly thought so, especially when the trash was still there the next morning. Maybe there were some kids pulling a prank, my wife would remark, taking a sip from her coffee and glancing nervously out the window. I think she was saying it more for our boys to benefit than my own. I nodded and ushered them away from the windows and told them to go play. But the next night, it happened again. No specific time so much as that dead of night period between 1 in the morning and 3 in the morning when the world falls totally silent around you. None of our animals made a peep during that time frame, nor did we dare to. Because when we heard them roll up again, we were paralyzed with fear. It took a few minutes to realize it, but when I looked to my wife and she returned my fearful glance with a wide-eyed stare and a nod, we scooped up the boys and huddled into our bed. The exact same sounds, the exact same timed footsteps, the exact same conversation. We heard them drag something wet into the truck before leaving after maybe 15 minutes. My younger boy Jace was always anxious, and hearing this uncanny valley shit at his age sent him into a panic attack. We spent the remaining time soothing him while my older son Travis took to peering through the window behind me. Our pig pen that lay some 40 feet to the right of the house had the door ripped off the hinges and a blood trail leading from the entrance all the way to the farm gates where the garbagemen had been. When we mustered up the courage to inspect further, the pigs were silent, unmoving and staring at the long dirt road that led away from the home, the tall trees that littered our farm looming overhead as if to silence them from telling what they'd seen. We tried calling the city council to complain, but they were as perplexed as we were. Said trash pickup day was still Tuesday, and that since it was only Saturday, we weren't due. They advised we file a complaint with the police for trespassers, but that yielded absolutely nothing. And in the meantime, things escalated. Night 3 brought us the same routine, same sounds. Even after we'd taken to putting a lock on the pig pen, they still took one. This time making sure to leave a small pile of viscera behind. Perhaps as a warning. We elected to putting the animals in the barn and deadbolting it, hoping the pranksters would get the message and perhaps get bored. I'd ordered a CCTV camera, but with my location being so out of the way, it was going to take time to arrive, and I wasn't about to stand in my window with a camera pointed out at some weirdos. We didn't consider the consequences of this defiance. It was night 5. The boys were sleeping in our room, and like clockwork, they showed up and pulled me from the little sleep I was getting, my wife soon after. Silently, goosebumps raised on our skin and a chill in our bones. We strained our ears against the open window, hoping to hear the frustration and subsequent decision to leave. The routine continued until Jeff spoke to Bill. The moment they opened their mouths, I knew something was horribly, horribly wrong.
This the one, Bill? Looks locked to me.
I reckon it is, Jeff. Let's pay him a visit.
They rattled our front doorknob and politely knocked at the door. 5 rhythmic knocks. 5 seconds of silence. 5 more aggressive knocks. I bolted downstairs and grabbed my rifle, keeping the lights off but my aim focused on him. adrenaline pushing fear aside, if only to defend my family. I don't know who the fuck you are, but you've been coming onto my property unannounced, and I ain't standing for it no more. I pulled back on the bolt, and the sound filled the room. You got 3 seconds to turn on your heel, or I'm firing. My eyes adjusted to the front door, and in the darkness, 2 shapes stood behind my door, shrouded in the shadow of night. They were tall, thin legs, and bizarre movements, like they were swaying in place. Those 3 seconds felt like a fucking eternity. 1! The shadow to the front leaned forward, trying to press its face against the glass. Something was wrong. 2! It moved away and tapped the letterbox, testing if it opened up. When it did, it held it open and spoke as the second shadow stepped closer. 3 never came. Instead, I backed away out of terror and barricaded our room, unable to speak. It repeated my last words back at me. Exact same pitch, exact same tone, but something was off about it. Like hearing your own voice played back through old speakers, you sense an eeriness to it. As I'd instinctively taken steps back, however, the other one spoke. This was the first time either had said anything that didn't either repeat. And I swear to God, it makes my heart pound in my throat just typing it. We have come to collect. Come outside. My legs carried my body before I could register what was going on. Rushing to the bedroom and locking it, I pulled my family in close and held my head down to theirs, desperate to block out whatever ungodly sounds erupted from our front door. It took half an hour before they gave up, assumed their usual routine, and left, the sound of the tires speeding off up the road bringing some degree of relief. Until the following morning when our nearest neighbors, the Gundersons, reported a break-in at their farm some 5 miles up the road. The perpetrators had smashed through the gate, entered the barn, and done such violent acts to their cattle that of the 10 that had been attacked and mutilated, only 2 had survived and were immediately put out of their misery by the patriarch, Ted.
You been having them problems with those sons of bitches too, Ty?
He bellowed down the phone once I began retelling our sleepless events.
Shit, you sound like hell and probably look worse than the cows at this point. I ain't having it. You got a young family to support, and when they hurt one of us, they hurt all of us. Tonight we put an end to it, you hear?
I nodded, agreeing to stake out our property that night and do whatever needed to be done. Hands still shaking, I grabbed a stiff drink from the cabinet. Never been much of a drinker. Most of this was my dad's for the tougher times. But if the times weren't tough now, I don't know when the fuck they would be. Ted rolls up around 11 p.m. Wife and kids are asleep, and we shoot the shit in the living room for a while, mainly discussing how the harvest has gone and what we could do to protect our livelihoods in this day and age. The conversation petered off as they often do when a night draws on, but it was as we fell silent that the realization swept over us. We were going to confront these people tonight. I gripped my gun a little tighter, and Ted gave me an assuring nod, peeking out the window for any signs of the garbagemen.
Son of a... My farm!
He bellowed, springing to his feet and bursting out the door before I could get a word in edgeways. He was halfway down the road before I could ask him what the fuck he was doing. He turned, his eyes wild with fear and rage, pointing a shaking finger to the small shape that was his house far across the hill. It was on fire. Large pillars of smoke billowing forth as the fire danced in the light, illuminating the surrounding fields. I can't sit here while my livelihood burns away, Ty. If those bastards are behind this, well, you can bet your ass they won't last the night when I'm through with them. I'll teach them a fucking lesson about the value of things. The things people throw away. With that, he turned on his heel and ran to his truck, speeding off before anything more could be said. This would be the only night the garbagemen don't pay us a visit. I get a bit of extra sleep, but my wife doesn't. She just stares out the window at the Gunderson farm in the distance and shakes her head. She knows how there will be no help on the horizon. She knows how close we are to that fate. And seeing that scares me to death. The 8th night. They arrive with no vehicle sounds, the grand build-up to the crescendo of their routine. They whistle softly as if calling an animal, patient in their call as they scrape something around in the dirt. I'm crippled by fear and cannot dream facing them. I look around in the dark and see Lucy is still asleep. Travis is snoring in the corner, but Jace, my boy, he's wide awake and transfixed, and staring at the window overlooking our driveway, reaching out to open it. I leap out of bed and just about tackle him away. The shock of waking up to such a violent affair sending him into a panic attack as the entire family snaps awake in a frenzy, shouting over one another as he cries uncontrollably. This has gotta stop, Tyson. We can't do this anymore. We can't live like this. My wife was right. Lucy was exhausted, her eyes barely open and her teeth chattering. In the moment of silence between us, the whistling started again, almost mocking it in its tone if it weren't for the sinister giggling behind it. Shut up, shut the fuck up and leave us alone! She screamed, walking towards that same window. It took everything I had to hold her back, and she fell to pieces in my arms. The entire family crippled by nerves and a lack of sleep. It was only when the one voice cut the air that the final night's events were set in motion.
The things people throw away.
Oh, fuck. Ted. One look into my wife's eyes and I knew what she was thinking. There was no stopping her. She darted around, packing the kids' clothes and any essentials she could find, ignoring the whistling outside and instructing our boys to focus on getting whatever they needed. She turned to me. You do what you need to do. I don't care if the nearest town is a 3-hour drive or I undergo the 7-hour drive to my mom's. I will not stay another night in this fucking house. Not until they're gone. She was almost delirious, fueled by fear and anger as she darted around like a hurricane, turning over the tables to get what she needed as if prepping for a weather event. Within a half hour she'd been rushing around, the noises had faded and the outside, once again, fell silent. I couldn't leave the house. It had been in our family's lineage for generations. We'd been born here, lived here, and died here no matter what. As the head of the family, it was my job to stay here and protect it, even if I couldn't protect those that I loved the most under its roof. She waited another hour before getting in the car and leaving, kissing me with all the passion she'd had when we first met. I told Jace that he had to be strong and that he'd one day conquer his fears because I believed in him. I told Travis that as the eldest, he needed to protect them like his life depended on it. Then, just like that, I waved them goodbye and promised I'd join them at their mother-in-law's when this was over. Now all that was left was to sharpen my resolve and find out what this was. I took the chance to try and get some sleep during the day, but no matter how hard I tried, it wouldn't come to me. So liquid courage it was. One way or another, this was going to end. Night 9. The penultimate night. Not a sound. I mean that in the most literal sense. The wind didn't move, the trees didn't speak, not a single blade of grass danced, and no dirt was kicked up. Everything was silent. So silent. My own thoughts were amplified in this void of sound. Every inane thought of what could happen flitted through my mind and forced me to double-check every fucking window and door. Triple-check the locks, ensure no oversight was left. Couldn't let them get an opportunity, even if it's just me. I know they're watching even now. If I didn't know any better, I'd have said a shadow move just behind the porch window. I can't be sure. Not without checking. I think they were biding their time, keeping me on edge and making sure that I knew they could step in whenever they wanted and do as they pleased. But I kept my nerve. I resisted the urge to bolt to the truck. I've got my whiskey, and I've got my gun. I'll see this through, even if it kills me. Night 10. Now we're all caught up. I checked on the animals this morning. What was left was a pile of bones, flesh, and waste. They'd been taken the night before, and I don't know how I didn't hear during the silence. There was but one horse's body left. Teeth marks riddled the torso, and the legs had been torn off. Our crops had grown fetid, decayed, and worn. Nothing in our farm would yield a goddamn thing anymore. My livelihood was decimated in front of my eyes. Gone. It's late now. I'm sat in my armchair with the rifle loaded and ready. My hands are shaking and my knee won't stop bouncing. I feel the dread start in my gut and worm its way through my chest before lodging in my throat and forcing every breath to be a labor of pain. They came early tonight. Truck roaring and routine sounds in full swing. Only, there weren't 2 sets of thuds this time. There were 6. We walked up to the porch, a shadow covering every facet of the window and door panes. Not a speck of light coming through. The voices don't change their pattern. They never do.
This the one, Bill? Looks ready to me.
They pound their fists against the window, a dull moan emanating from the background, pained, muffled, and growing in strength.
I reckon it is, Jeff. Let's get her done.
Nails drag down the glass, a horrific groaning accompanying the repeated intonations of their godforsaken phrases.
The things people throw away.
Oh, Ted. Poor Ted. Smashing his head against the wall, repeating it with every 6 swing. It was only when I heard the 4th voice that I finally looked out the window. Perhaps on instinct.
Not until they're gone.
My Lucy. My sweet Lucy calling to me. I can't begin to tell you what I saw when I pulled back the curtains for just a split second. But every forbidden aspect of it is burned into my brain, and it will not leave me even as I shut my eyes in the surrounding chorus of madness. My kids. My fucking kids are now saying they've come to collect. That I must come outside. That whistle has come back, and it's almost soothing. I can't bear to do this on my own. I can't live with that image in my fucking skull anymore. I miss my wife. I miss my kids. I miss sleeping soundly at night. What if it's them out there? What if they're really just wanting me to get help, and my own sick mind has put me in such a state that I'm here, asking you all for help on something that is, at its core, just truly simple? I'm gonna put the laptop down and open the door. I have to know. I have to. Why did the garbagemen start coming in the dead of night? Does anyone know?
Why do I feel like this story is allegorical for something? Maybe some other kind of, cleaning service provided by an entity that is clearly something more sinister than it appears on the surface? Maybe looking up will provide the answer. Don't you think, listeners? Why do the garbagemen come at night? We don't have garbage men here at Dusklight. No, we simply feed our garbage to the gaping maw in our basement. It doesn't seem to mind what we throw into it. Food, plastics, relics, creatures, hopes and dreams, emotional baggages, regrets, or unwanted things. It takes it all with glee, and occasionally it spits out something of value. Last time I threw in an unwanted thing, it gave me a shiny new collar, a glass eye that swiveled to follow me wherever I went, and a bottle of Mama Killer's Pulse Thumper 30th Anniversary Edition. Looks like crystallized seawater. It tastes just as bad. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out some of our other transmissions. We're adding them regularly, and we'd love to have you as part of the Dusklight family by subscribing, hitting the bell of corruption, it's just a normal bell, but adding stuff like that is nice, and leave a comment with stories you'd love for my many-legged runners to find. Dedication needs to be rewarded, and we thank more and more of our loyal listeners for joining these premieres each and every time. This time we give thanks to Soul Pillow, Laren Listens, Isaac Peace, Jason and Gamma, our terrifying twosome at every premiere, and the character known as Just Making It Work for giving us their valuable time. I hope we can continue this forward growth and spread our spores to the far corners of YouTube, infecting the airwaves with our intoxicating presence. And when we hit 500, we got something wonderful planned. And one last time, listeners, Close your eyes and breathe with me. Remember, no matter how bad things are, how cruel people can be, and how heavy your shoulders may feel with the weight of the world bearing down on them, Dusklight will always be here to lift the load and provide you with some respite. Drink some water, watch a nature documentary, eat some takeout, and sleep on the cool side of the pillow. You matter, you are loved, and every day is another chance. I'll see you again when the sun sets and dusk enters the station.